Oh, hello, yes. Well, riddle me this, Batman. When are the woke Marxist lefty teachers with a trans agenda? Not woke Marxist lefty teachers with a trans agenda. Holy real estate business developers, it's when you're Richard Tice, who's giving a press conference where he can't come out with the sort of tosh that he normally would do on GB News, but by God, he was pushing it yesterday. Anyway, one of those intriguing things, there was the usual Monday morning, it must be reform press conference style things, and it was about local government savings, in particular SEND education, special educational needs, which is right up my street. Now, normally, you see, it would all be the fault of me, solo, just all on my own, why everything's so bad. But Richard had to sort of, call on some experts, definite experts that definitely exist, who are definitely talking to him all about things that, I guess aren't exactly to do with real estate business, but apparently he knows a lot about these things because he's into real estate business. Yeah, so he knows this stuff, yes. In particular, he decided to have a go at kids in ear defenders. Worthwhile quoting for him, the sight of children in classes wearing ear defenders, I'm sorry, this is just insane. It's got to stop. The teachers want it to stop, heads wanting to stop. It's not the right way forwards. Yes, which had me intriguing as a teacher and indeed an ex-head teacher. Oh, so I'm wondering who these teachers or head teachers are that have definitely been talking to Richard, who definitely exist. You see, because in my experience, and, as a little bit of an expert, one might say. I've done this job for 25 years working with high-functioning autistic kids in very, very specialised schools, so dealing with a fairly rarefied spectrum, might actually know what I'm talking about, qualified teacher, plus a whole bunch of, external qualifications after that, in and around autism, even done research onto this particular subject. You see, the thing is that I know what I'm talking about, and Richard just doesn't, even though he's really into real estate. Did I mention that? He did, certainly, several times, yes, because it's important to know what you're talking about, isn't it? Yes. Anyway, certain people are either hypersensitive or hyposensitive. That's the opposite, right? Okay? Some of us don't mind a great deal of noise, others of us just don't like it. We accept that as normal in human conditions. So, in order to get a child who is perhaps particularly feeling sensitive about their hearing, and I use that word, particularly because when you look at autistic people, and trust me, I have done the research on this because I've written a paper on it, one of the things that you find is that their appreciation of certain sensitivities is very much higher, very often hyper, or indeed a lot lower, hypo. So sometimes they really, really don't mind very loud noise. Yes, but just generally speaking, if a child wants to wear ear defenders and they're sat in the class and they're doing the work, I consider that a victory. Richard doesn't, because he just doesn't like the look of it. He can understand a child in a wheelchair, even though they might be lying, let's face it, with pushy parents, but he just can't get his head round people that don't look like they've got a disability. So during yesterday's press conference, which was ostensibly about cutting things in local government, yes, they actually used that phrase at least twice, and he said, you can have a link down below, you can look at it for yourself, but what he basically said was that Doge, yes, they're still banging on about that, with reform, basically will just cut loads and loads of services that they don't feel that they should pay for. Come back to that notion in a second. But the thing about Richard, of course, is that he just doesn't know about certain things. So certain things that don't look right to him, like hidden disabilities, he just poo-poos. He did have the audacity, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be up in arms about this, to suggest that basically neurological conditions, you just kind of grow out of them. But that's the thing about a neurological condition, you really don't. It's a bit like arguing that somebody's leg might grow back after a car accident. It's not going to happen, Richard. That's not the way it works. You might well be able to, fight your way through life and get better at it if you're autistic, or in some cases, people don't. That's why the suicide rate is 4 times higher in adults with autism than for the rest of the population. There, you see, that's me knowing things, isn't it? But it is worthwhile unpacking some of the other stuff that Richard was going to suggest. But what I would say is, I would like somebody out there, perhaps Richard himself, to, show me who these teachers and head teachers are, because, other than Miss Snuffy at the Michaela School, I don't think they exist at all. I think they only exist in his own hedge, or perhaps his own Doge unit, which doesn't really seem to consist of anybody whatsoever at the moment. But let's think about what else he's going to do to save money. Save money being the key thing. Although, what for, he didn't exactly say. He just said it was was wasteful. Anyway, let's have a look at this. One of the key features here is these EHCPs. That's Education, Health and Care Plans for the uninitiated amongst you, middle class, playing the game in order to save on the VAT on independent school fees. If you get the EHCP, you don't pay the VAT, so they're employing solicitors to fight in order to file their claims. Yes, you see, but unfortunately, for me, because even though I don't know anything about real estate development, which Richard really does, which is come in handy when they sell off all those buildings, because that was the other big thing. They're just going to privatise loads of stuff, which means selling off. Yay! No more libraries. No, that's been converted into flats. No, EHCPs. Right, now, Richard doesn't want them being done every year because he said it's unnecessary. Again, I'm not quite sure how he knows this. But one of the things about these plans, speaking to somebody who's done an awful lot of them, not Richard, although he does know about, real estate, is that actually what tends to happen is that over time, the child becomes less expensive because the provision for them goes down because they get older. There you go, Richard. It's actually kind of what you're saying, but the difference is that I know what I'm talking about. Yes, and the whole thing about parents, doing this, to get out of paying VAT. Well, I want him to show me some parents that have done that. Just one will do. I'll accept just one. Because it will cost you, in order to bring sort of legal proceedings against a local council via a solicitor, or if you're going to go really top tier, it's going to be a lawyer, a minimum of £20,000 to do it. And I say a minimum. So I would love him to show me the people that are getting round VAT on schools at 17.5% or whatever it is, compared to, that particular fee. I'm sure they do exist outside of the Doge unit, which is another thing that certainly does exist outside of Richard's head. Yes, absolutely. But you'll notice that here, the key thing about this isn't about value for money or doing what's best for people. It's simply, just doing what something is cheaper. And what they've done is they've discovered through their wildly successful local authority officers, their councillors, that actually one of the key things that councils have to pay out for is, send provision. But one might ask, why exactly is it that these things are so expensive? Well, because, and again, this is because I know, over the years, parents have had to fight for statutory provision because it's no longer there because of austerity. The thing that Richard poo-pooed yesterday when he was asked about that. Isn't it just a continuation of austerity? He basically said it was a very, very good idea that you get a continuation of austerity. After all, nobody really wants schools or libraries or potholes. No, they don't want potholes. Or rather, they're going to get them, aren't they? Because, of course, we'll just do it at least cost. And you may notice this about your pothole rows. But this is the key thing here. This isn't about provision. It's about those precious tax cuts, that ideological blueprint that says that anything the government does must be bad. And by association, anything local government does must be bad. So you just need to privatise it. And even if it costs more, it will be better. Well, yes, you see, parents take councils to court over, their child's provision because, like I say, of austerity for the last 15 years because the provision isn't there. So you can have things written into an EHCP and they just don't actually come round. So the parent has to take the school to court. That's where all the costs from. And the local authority will fight the costs because they know over an X amount of time, if they can wear down the parent and they just give up, which an awful lot of them, usually the middle class ones, unfortunately for Richard, because it is actually a class-based thing, they will simply walk away from it. Now, if Richard actually wants some fairly good ideas about, reorganising SEND and making it a lot more efficient, especially in terms of cost, I've got loads of ideas. But the thing is, you're going to need to prime it from one end. We would need to completely reorganise the way that it's done. And Richard doesn't want to do that because that will actually cost more money. But think to yourself, what exactly is the cost, for example, of saying that kids can no longer be taken to school by taxi? When they have special educational needs. They should just be taken by their parents, says Richard. Oh, okay then. What will be the cost of that? I would like to see reform cost that one out. Because those parents, a lot of them, if they've got to take their child, into work, into school at 8:30, won't be able to go to work. So what's the societal cost for that? What's the societal cost for all those kids that won't go, full stop, because their parents can't not work, eh? So what's the cost there, Richard? Just cost it out, mate. After all, you've got the Doge unit, haven't you? All those brilliant people that you know. I mean, not necessarily about real estate, they might not know, but I'm sure they know everything about everything, a bit like you do. Yeah? I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear somebody come out with costed proposals around that. Like I say, if you want to talk to an expert, here I am. I don't mind. I'll be happy to have a chat with somebody, but you won't like what I've got to hear or what I've got to say, especially as it comes, from a woke leftist with a particular pro-trans agenda. Appalling, eh? Anyway, do have a lovely, stay warm day if you can do. Nippy, isn't it, suddenly? Yeah. Still, never mind. Think of the money we're saving. That's something you could do, couldn't you? Just turn off the heating. Think of all the money you'll save. Maybe not, eh? Enjoy.